Welcome to the Darkstream. Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com. And tonight we're going to talk about how civilization is not a proposition. Welcome to the reprehensibles. Welcome to the unauthorized. Welcome to the VFM, to the Dread Ilk, and as always, to the Bears. So good to see you tonight. This is actually an updated version of the new streaming software. Very exciting. I haven't had time to play with it and see if there's any new features yet or not, but it's working, so that's the most important thing. Thanks to all of you who asked about my knee. Went to the specialist today, and I'm in pretty good shape. It's definitely injured. I'm definitely going to be out for a few weeks, but it doesn't look like I tore any important ligaments or shredded my meniscus or did anything. So they basically just have immobilized the leg for the next week, and then it should be then I can take the cast or whatever it is off, and then I'll probably need to do a little bit of physio, but according to the doctor, he thinks there's a good chance that I will see get back on the field before the end of the month. So that would be cool. Muffhead says, "Hey Vox, hope you're feeling better. Really enjoying the content lately and wanted to tell you that the urban apocalypse looks great. Please add more." Oh, we will. We definitely will. And in fact, tonight I'm going to show you a little bit of Barcelona Life episode 2, which we just released today on the unauthorized. Save Western Civilization now asks, did you hyperextend it? That's the theory, and it actually makes some degree of sense. They did an X-ray, and there wasn't anything. There wasn't anything broken or torn up. I mean, they couldn't rule out some of the like cartilage tearing stuff without doing an MRI, but he did, due to the lack of swelling, the lack of pain, and everything. They figured that it's all fine. So, anyhow, it's I'm actually, I don't know if it's from my martial arts experience or what, but I usually heal surprisingly fast, and I usually don't get injured as badly as I should. Back before we moved to Europe, I injured my ankle playing touch football with my friends, and the doctor at the time said it was the worst sprain that he'd ever seen in his entire career, and both sides of the ankle were really, really badly sprained. But I was really fortunate because everybody, including me, was convinced that it was completely broken. So it's all good. It's all good. Just gotta take care of it, come back stronger. That's the idea. So, proposition, civilization. What on earth does that mean? And where does it come from? Well, I finished reading Ben Shapiro's The Right Side of History, and it was very clear that what he is attempting to push is a redefinition of Western civilization in much the same way that his Jewish ancestors have pushed the idea of America being a proposition nation. Now, how many of you ever subscribed to the idea that America was a proposition or an idea. Because I know I did when I was younger. That's what we were taught. That's what we were taught by the civic nationalists. That's what we were told. And what's really interesting is that if you look up the Google Ngram reader, I'm going to look this up. So if you look it up and you look up the terms proposition nation, it tells you something very interesting. There's no Ngram to find. I could have sworn there was on there before. Yeah. So, if you look up the term melting pot, for example, what you'll see is that it was basically not really a common term at all until 1906. And when all of these terms became popular around the same time. It's interesting. You can't, proposition nation and idea nation are not popular enough to even show up. Let's see. But these ideas come from immigrants who wanted to convince people that the American nation was not just exceptional, but it was totally different. It wasn't like every other nation on earth. The problem with this is that it completely flies in the face of the actual history. We had a big argument about this on the blog between me and an author named Tom Kratman that we used to publish. And the thing that's interesting is if you look up the ideas and the concepts, you can see that all of those ideas about proposition nation, the concept that America was just an idea rather than a people, is totally false. And you can see that if you look up what the founding fathers wrote. When Thomas Jefferson talked about the Red Indian savages not being American, and when he talked about British brethren, he was clearly not talking about ideas. He was talking about actual people, an actual distinct people. John Jay refers specifically to Americans as being a distinct people. And so, but the problem is that people are so ignorant today. They're so ignorant of their own American history that they've been successfully convinced, many if not most of them, that their own nation never existed. The American people have been literally defined out of existence. So what's interesting about Ben Shapiro's book, The Right Side of History, is that he's now attempting to define Western civilization out of existence. He's trying to define Western civilization as an idea. But what is really intriguing, and this is something that I'll address in my book review that I'm going to put on the Unauthorized soon, is that Shapiro doesn't even know what a civilization is. Listen to this. Civilizations that rejected Jerusalem and Athens and the tension between them have collapsed into dust. Okay? So what civilizations is he talking about? Is he talking about the Mayan civilization? The Persian civilization? He says, the USSR rejected Judeo-Christian values and Greek natural law, substituting the values of the collective and a new utopian vision of social justice. Are you sure they rejected Judeo values? The Bolsheviks. But here's the thing. The USSR was a state. It was an empire, but it was not a civilization. The Nazis rejected Judeo-Christian values and Greek natural law, and they shoved children into gas chambers. I don't know, Ben. You sure about that? But Germany was not a civilization. Venezuela rejects Judeo-Christian values and Greek natural law, and citizens of their oil-rich nation have been reduced to eating dogs. Do they really? Is that really what they do? It seems to me that there are probably plenty of Christians in Venezuela. Let's look it up. Let's look it up. What is the religious background of Venezuela? Religion in Venezuela: Christian, 88%. Catholic, 71%. Protestant and other Christians, 17%. Other faiths, 3%. So how exactly have the Venezuelans rejected Judeo-Christian values? Let's assume that Judeo-Christian values actually exist. How have Venezuelans rejected Christian values? And how fast does that rejection cause their society to fall apart? And since when is Venezuela a civilization? Ben Shapiro doesn't even know what a civilization is, and he is trying to claim that Western civilization is nothing but an idea. Listen to this. I put this column up on my blog today because I thought it was very revelatory concerning how little Shapiro understands about this stuff. Ironically, reduction of Western civilization to racial supremacy isn't just a strategy of the intersectional left. It's a strategy of the despicable alt-right, which champions Western civilization as white civilization. It is a white civilization. What are the synonyms for Western civilization? European civilization, Occidental civilization, and then seeks to rip away the universalism of its principles from non-white people. Non-white people have their own civilizations. The Chinese people have Chinese civilization. The Japanese have Japanese civilization. Muslims and Arabs have Arab civilization. They have what's called the Ummah, which is Islamic civilization. It's insane. Western civilization is not universal. There's nothing universal about it. That's why we talk about the Greco-Roman legal and philosophical legacy, because it was the way that the Greeks and the Romans chose to structure their societies. And we've learned from some of those things and adapted from some of those things, but that doesn't make those things universal. There's nothing universal about it. What is universal about voting or suffrage? Those are not even things that are related to Western civilization. Those are Enlightenment principles that have been used to destroy Western civilization. Anyhow, let me go on here. Our civilization is riddled with internal contradictions, communities bereft of values, and individuals bereft of meaning. We're watching European politics devolve into a battle between far-left socialists who promise utopia and far-right nationalists who promise national restoration. Both are bound to fail. That's false. That's not the battle in Europe. I can tell you right now, the political battle in Europe is between nationalists and neoliberal global imperialists like Ben Shapiro. That's the actual battle. This whole left and right thing that conservatives and neocons love to talk about is false. It's outdated because here's why. It's very obvious. Sorry. The interesting thing is that sorry, I got a little distracted. My leg got caught. I completely lost my train of thought there. The whole right-left thing. The division between right and left is when you all belong to the same identity group. It's when, if you have a division, an ideological division requires similar identities, because then you're arguing about ideas. But when you have different identities, you don't argue about those ideas because you're arguing about who's going to be on top. Identity politics are a natural response to demographic, rival demographics. That's all. All identity politics means is you have a empire, not a nation. You've got rival groups struggling for power, competing for power. M. Anthony Dunn says, I'm beginning to think Ben Shapiro is less intelligent than Vox's Ridgebacks. Yeah, it's just nuts. I mean, the guy literally confuses nation with state. I'm not going to point it out right now, but he confuses nation with state. He confuses civilization with country. And he tries to claim that proposition civilizations are possible. They're not. They don't exist. They're even less possible than proposition nations, which also don't exist. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. And again, this is why it matters whether people tell the truth or not, if they tell the truth or not. And if they don't, you know that they are devoted to falsehood and they can't hide it for long. Once you know that they are, liars, you can't trust anything they say, even the stuff that you think that you agree with. How much research do you think he did? Oh, I think that he or his team did a fair amount of research. Garuna Laker said, Shapiro's book sounds as intellectually sloppy as Sam Harris. It is. But in some cases, it's more obviously false. Josiah says, do you think he does that on purpose or does he really not know the difference? I assumed that he was doing it on purpose. Now the level of some of these mistakes, the fact that he is switching between civilization and country and switching between Western civilization and America willy-nilly makes me think that he just doesn't really understand the concepts. He doesn't really understand the terms involved. Is the U.S. an exceptional nation? No. The main reason that the U.S. became as powerful as it did was not because of anything special relating to the ideas of its founding. The main reason that it was so successful is because it had the resources of an entire continent. It had a relatively high Q, risk-seeking population. It basically had the best of the British, and they were Christians. And so you put those factors together and you had something that was very high performance. But it was also, they put too much confidence in the ideas, and that's why they let in, first the Irish, then the Italians, and then the Jews, and that over time completely destroyed the advantages of the ideas, because most of those people were not, didn't understand them, didn't care about them, had no allegiance to them whatsoever. And then the problems were compounded once the frontier closed. Once you ran out of frontier space, then, now you don't have a way of easily preventing those intergroup rivalries. Do you think race-blind boomer conservatives begin to rethink, or do we have to wait until the older voting blocks are replaced by the younger? I don't think it's going to matter. I think that the entire system is on the verge of breaking down, and I give it about 15 years. I think that within 15 years, we're going to see the start of the collapse of the U.S. empire. No, I don't know who Mark Dice is. A number of people keep bringing him up in context with Shapiro, but I don't know who he is, nor do I care. All right. Somebody needs to be nuked there. Johan says, I lost count of how many times Ben mentioned Judeo-Christian values on Joe Rogan today. Yeah, he's lying. He's absolutely lying. There's no such thing as Judeo-Christian values. Judaic values are intrinsically and totally opposed to Christian values. That's like saying satanic Christian values. There's no connection whatsoever. You don't have to take my word for it. All you need to do is, ask Ben Shapiro, do you worship the Christian God? Do you worship the Father of Jesus Christ? They'll tell you the answer. Yeah, I don't think that this is something that could be. There's no way to vote your way out of it. I don't even see how you could. Donald Trump is barely electable, and he is not even capable of beginning to address the core problems. And so, Reddens thinks that it'll be a imperium with princeps rather than republic. I don't think so, because the empire it's already an empire and it's too divided. Nokolai said Shapiro mocked Christianity. I would be a little bit surprised if he was bold enough to do that openly. It would be very, very interesting. The whole reason that he's pushing the Judeo-Christian thing is because he's trying to appeal to Christians. So I would be very, very surprised to see him being that bold. I know that Joe Rogan mocks Christianity. Woolly Ram says that its most basic, Judaism is exclusive while Christianity is universal. No, that's not the most basic. The most basic is that Judaism rejects the Christian concept of evil. The whole reason that Jesus Christ had to come is because evil rules this world. So he came to redeem us from evil and from sin. If you reject Jesus Christ, you also reject the concept of evil ruling the world. There's no need for Jesus Christ to come. There's no belief in the world being intrinsically evil. There's no belief in the world being ruled by the evil prince of this world. And that's why they actually subscribe to something called healing the world. So their whole perspective is literally the opposite of the Christian when it comes to good and evil. Judaism believes in healing a non-fallen world. They basically believe in healing a sick world, something that can be fixed. Christians know it can't be fixed. It's evil. It's fallen. And so, Jesus Christ had to come to redeem us from that. Well, if you're rejecting redemption, and if you're trying to fix evil, and notice how this theme of fixing evil flows through all of these charlatans. What is Jordan Peterson trying to do? Jordan Peterson is trying to fix the evil world. What were the communists trying to do? They were trying to fix the evil world. The only people who try to fix evil are evil. Evil is not something that can be fixed. It simply is. It can be defeated, but it cannot be fixed. So anyhow, that's why I would encourage you to keep that in mind and understand that it is absolutely and totally incompatible with Christian values. There are no such things as satano-Christian values. They are contradictory. They are fundamentally and totally opposed. So, Drew M. draws the right point. The way that neocons try to fix the left. Exactly. So let's talk now. Let's move on to some lighter topics. First of all, I'm happy to be able to say that we have released the second episode of Barcelona Life, and I'm going to show you a couple clips from it here. So let me turn off my camera and bring this up. Oops, I didn't mean to go there. We'll go back to the beginning.
So we are at the Terramar Golf and Country Club and about to go on a little adventure and discover something that has puzzled us for a little while.
So welcome and enjoy the ride.
Exactly.
Partridge Family?
Come on, get happy.
Basically, we got two bars here. I will do all the interior design details in Ibiza because there are a lot of artists, and I just make a party, giving some cans of color and whatever. This is more or less for like the VIP day beds, whatever. Though, if necessary, and it's not a medical conference here, we have a pole dance as well.
Come on, get happy.
So, there you have it. Mystery solved? Well, after Andreas secures the sponsors for solar panels and such, he and his happy bus will relocate to Ibiza, where the parties are sure to be good. All o'clock, the sun's setting, and that usually means here that it's kava o'clock. And we have here kava from the House Cordon which is local, less than an hour from here. And yeah, Elizabeth, why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, so basically cava is the Spanish version of champagne. And it's actually made with méthode champenoise, the same with French champagne. Tastes a little bit more like champagne than like a brut. And it's
So that is the latest Barcelona life. It's pretty funny. We've got all kinds of content coming on unauthorized TV, and exactly from old people drinking wine to crazy young people building fences to me criticizing intellectual charlatans. So there's all kinds of stuff, survivalism and so forth. Anyhow, it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to making an appearance on Barcelona Life one of these days here. But it's a good life. It's a good life, and it's a lot of fun. So, anyhow, we're looking at adding some cooking stuff. We're looking at adding all kinds of stuff. Possibly even doing something with Milo. So, if you haven't signed up yet for unauthorized TV, I would encourage you to do so. If you want to watch the whole thing, it's there. No, I'm not a Civilization player. I played Civ 1. I played some of the precursor games to Civ, but it's never been my thing. My son was actually big time into Civilization. In fact, he was on a team that did a pretty serious Civilization mod back in the day. So, Aleph says, I know you're in the early stages, but do you have plans to do crossover shows every once in a while between the content creators? Quite possibly. I mean, I think it would be awfully fun to, get together and do a stream or a show and, do like an episode of Barcelona Life where Owen and I are both there. David the Good vids on the gardening stuff are fantastic. He knows more about gardening than anybody I've ever met. And so, what we're trying to do is provide video entertainment that is true and beautiful and good. And we're just learning how to do it. Keep in mind, we've been doing this for 18 days. That's all. 18 days. And yet we're already introducing new programs. We're already introducing new stuff. Johan says, what do you tell MAGA people who constantly mock Europe and say Europe is doomed? I tell them that they're ignorant morons who haven't done the demographic math. Europe is in vastly better shape demographically than the United States. So, anyhow, it's, let's see. Static Void says, you're promulgating the right ideas. Most Americans base their ideas about Europe on Paris and Rome and London, especially London. But the reality is that there are fewer Muslims in Rome than in Minneapolis. And I learned that from a couple from Minneapolis who came over to visit and went to Rome with us. You know, they were astounded because they were expecting, you know, lots of Muslims everywhere. They're like, there's fewer here than there are there. So, see, this is the stupid stuff. This is where you can tell the stupid American. Wheeled Skeptic says, LOL, isn't Europe disarmed? Why do morons like you say stupid things like that? I will never understand why you say stupid things like that rather than simply look at Wikipedia. They'll tell you right there, firearms ownership is not as high as it is in the United States, but it is not insignificant. You know, I think it's what, maybe 7%, maybe 13% in Italy. Let me look it up here. Okay. Per capita gun ownership in Italy is around 12%, with an estimated 7 million registered firearms in circulation. See? You know, you think 7 million registered weapons is disarmed? That's just the registered ones. It's Italy. Italians don't pay any attention to the laws. If there are 7 million registered weapons in Italy, there are probably on the order of 30 million total. Is it not a question I asked, Vok? You said LOL. You're a fucking gamma. Okay? Take your passive-aggressive gamma stink and either learn not to bring it here or just go away. I'm not going to ban you. You haven't done anything that requires banning. I am telling you, don't say stupid things. Don't ever say LOL. Okay? Were you laughing? You were laughing because you erroneously thought Europeans are disarmed? It's funny? I don't think it's funny. I think it's just stupid and wrong to say something like that. And so you're trying to hide behind a question, but you weren't really asking a question. Isn't Europe disarmed? No, Europe is not disarmed. Why did you put the LOL in front of it? Because you're a passive-aggressive gamma. That's why. Yes, LOL is gamma every single time. No normal person ever says that. No normal person who is not low. That's something that women and low-status males do. You're not actually laughing. And why would you be laughing if you're honestly asking a question? You know, it's an indication that you're going to say something passive aggressive. So, Crazy Life says, I'm a premium member. Get Milo on, please. We may consider it. We may. We'll see. So let's deal with the super chats now, because I think I've missed a few. And then we'll talk a little bit about Milo. Let's see here. Okay. Vinny says, what is your opinion regarding Tolstoy's interpretation of Christianity? I think it is a bit too spiritualist for me. Although I do admire the man's writing and his intellect. Artillery Bear says, Vox just wanted to show some support. Thanks, Artillery Bear. Always appreciate the ammo. Aussie Mad Dog says, "Hey Vox, will you and Owen be streaming back to back on the live stream debut of Unauthorized?" We haven't talked about it, so I don't know, but that's not a bad idea. I'm going to continue doing my streaming here for the time being, because we have the ability to do super chats. We don't have the ability there yet. We won't have the ability there yet. But I don't see, I think that at least initially it would be a good idea to do that. It's also possible that we're going to be able to work out a way to do dual streaming, kind of like I used to do with Stream.me. So that's a possibility too. John D says, "What is your opinion on Andrew Yang and universal basic income?" I think it's a total joke. I think there is absolutely nothing serious about it. It's just meme nonsense. John D says, I'm on the fence about it, not because I'm worried about myself, but because I see a lot of positivity in his message. Also, I don't see any truckers learning AI. Well, I mean, there is a possibility that we will eventually enter a post-scarcity economy where universal basic income is going to be accepted by everyone. But Andrew Yang is not going to bring it to us. I mean, no one is going, he's not going to be nominated. He's not going to be elected. He's not a serious candidate. So don't worry about it. The commissary said, "I couldn't find the societal stress index Turkin." No, it's Turkin. Peter Turkin, Turchin. You can find his books on Amazon. Tupac Sobieski says, "Is Ben Shapiro unaware of the basic historical fact that the Bolshevik Revolution was largely caused by Zionist Jews?" That's not quite correct. Bolshevist Jews were not Zionists. They were, there were sympathies. The Zionists were socialists, but that's why they set up the kibbutzes and all that sort of thing. But to the best of my understanding, the Bolshevists were not Zionists. TB88 says, "This sounds like Shapiro's forebears selling Western Marxism to non-Western powers in order to modernize." It does, doesn't it? Sounds even more like the neocons trying to push themselves as the defenders of conservatism and republicanism while they were subverting it. Dan Rain says, "What IQ range do you think Shapiro is at?" I think he's probably in the low 130s. I'd be a little bit surprised to hear that he's actually higher than 132, because he's such a credentialist. I would assume that he would have joined Mensa and made a big deal out of it. Now he may have, I don't know. I don't pay close enough attention to him, but the fact that he doesn't wave those credentials around, I think tends to indicate that he is, probably more in the 128 to 130 range. Born Again Bear says, "Would small towns with under 500 population be ideal for 2033? Yes, as long as they're, in a demographic that you fit into nicely." Mark says, "Here, Vox, buy a goodie with this. Thanks." I feel like here's a Scooby snack. Good Time Sword Bear says, "We're going down all the way to Chinatown." Well, Vancouver is anyhow. M. Anthony Dunn says, "Judaism teaches that Satan has no free will. You don't have to be a genius to see what that means for evil and the origin of evil." No, you don't. Unauthorized Bear said, "Shapiro is literally the opposite of Logos. My 10-year-old son just started listening to the Darkstream with me." This is me making a mental note to watch my language. And he is now starting to ask some very good questions. That's excellent. I'm delighted to hear it. Thanks for this, Vox. You're welcome, Unauthorized Bear. PFO Dynamite throws in a couple dollars and then just says, "Ben Shapiro is lame." It's hard to argue with that. I already answered Grime Knights. I'm not going to play Civilization 6 live. P. Scheibmeier throws in a few dollars here. Thank you. Bavarian Viking Bear says, "What's a good source to use to show Shapiro's hypocrisy and what he truly believes?" Use his book. Use quotes from his book. it's full of them. Use his recent quote from, all you got to do is get any quote from him on Judeo-Christian values or Western civilization, and then compare it to something as crude as Wikipedia, or find an even better source. You compare them and you'll show that he's a liar. Splitter Trace says, is it wise to flee a wicked state like California? Yes. Should I stay and try to fix it by starting a Christian traditional family? You're not going to fix California. You're way too outnumbered. The same Durlex Sedlex says, the same idiots who say that about guns in Europe look at a waiting period and a $200 tax stamp and think nobody here has any cans or knows how to weld. That's true. If you think about it, think about how many firearms manufacturers are based in Europe. Let's see. Wrestling Bear asks, hey Vox, do you think unauthorized TV could get a feature to allow playing audio while the screen is off? Yes, they're working on it, probably in the August timeframe. Neutrino says, what do you think about Hermeticism Kybalian? I think it's occultic and dangerous and should be avoided. Daniel Ire says, this stream has over 10 NFPM new facts per minute. That seems hard to believe. Muffhead says, the finest guns in the world are made in Europe. There are enough people with guns in Europe to be able to bum rush a few armories and get everything. Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that typically when you see social unrest, the main place that people get weapons from is they buy them from the police and the soldiers. Because there's a lot of money in it. Brian Peterson says, Vox, who do you cheer for in Serie A in the World Cup? I cheer for AC Milan in Serie A, and in the World Cup, I usually cheer for Italy. I mean, I have a long list of teams that I like. I used to cheer for England, but I'm not as keen on them anymore. But, typically, I like Italy. I like Spain just because they're so good. I like Switzerland because they're surprisingly good, despite the fact that they never have any attackers. I really don't like the Germans. I don't like the French. And I don't like most of the African teams. Just, with the way that they play. Christian Cesaro says, please put my free super chat towards some wine. I will do so. Thank you. Marek Korzeniowski says, have you read Felix Konezhinian, Civilization Differences? No, I have not, and my apologies for butchering his last name. Fan opinion, wasting channel time on loser gammas. Probably, but it has to be done. Hobby 425 says, will new nations be formed out of the conflict and degeneration of the coming years? Yes. Lots of people have little but the conflict binding them. Well, that's, I've always said, homogeneous nations come out of heterogeneous nations or heterogeneous empires. The same way that the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Roman Empire led to new nations, the breakup and collapse of the U.S. empire will do the same thing. Evan Hartshorn says, here's a Scooby snack. Thanks, Evan. Try and Speak says, the unauthorized website said apps are available, but I can't find them because they're not ready yet. I don't know when they'll be ready, but we're behind on working on it. That's something I've got to do this week. P. Scheibner says, what's the best way to study for the IQ test? Ben Shapiro would like to know. Yeah, Ben would probably have to cheat. Nat Pat says, hey Vox, it looks like Alessandra Mussolini was in a Twitter fight with Jim Carrey over her grandfather Benito. Yeah, that was pretty funny. She didn't, what he's referring to is she didn't appreciate Jim Carrey doing a drawing of the murder of Benito Mussolini and his mistress. What is the opinion of the average Italian for Alessandra and her grandfather? Alessandra is fairly popular. Mussolini is, I mean, they really don't talk about them that much. You know, there's not a lot of, I mean, you've got the occasional academic. You know, I read a book by an Italian historian on the fascists, and you know, it's kind of a dead letter to Italians these days. They don't really spend any time thinking about it. I mean, they don't even really use it. You very, very seldom hear La Liga being called fascists. I think you hear the EU being called fascist more than you hear La Liga being called fascist. Felix Pascal says, in an overabundance economy, a man's salary can cover a big family. In a post-scarcity economy, would clans with a few providers for the whole clan rise, or are those things long gone? Thanks for all. Well, in a post-scarcity economy, I think that you are going to see the whole social credit thing become more important, because things like fame and celebrity and social credit become more valuable than stuff. You know, when everybody can get whatever stuff they want, and you know, and you could even argue that we're kind of there now. You know, you can get whatever you need. You can eat whatever you want. You can, you know, there's a reason why it's the poor who are fat now rather than the wealthy. So, any book recommendations on becoming financially literate? Yes. Is it worth saving metals in gold and silver? It's always a good idea to have some. Yes. This is a surprisingly good book on financial stuff. And it's written by somebody who, admittedly knew nothing about financial stuff and suffered greatly as a result. So, we're actually working on getting it onto Amazon. It's not there yet, I don't think. Let me just double check. Yeah, Amazon's had it in review for more than 36 hours. So we'll have to see whether they actually are willing to publish it or not. But you don't need to wait for Amazon to publish the ebook. The ebook's already available at archavencomics.com. You can see the link below the video. And you know, there's also stuff like, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and who's the guy who's always talking about it? Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey's pretty good on that kind of stuff. But you know, the key thing is, don't spend everything you make. Just save it. You know, don't try to get rich quick when you're investing. Just try to make, you know, 5 to 10%. You know, conservatism, a conservative approach and consistency is going to serve you much better in the long run than always trying to get rich quick. So, but you know, Milo's book directly addresses some of those questions, because it was a new experience to him. And so he wanted to share it with other people who might, you know, find themselves in similar positions for one reason or another. You know, I mean, I was really surprised when I read it. It was not at all what I was expecting. No, it's not a joke. So, no, I thought Unauthorized was a channel for conservative values. I'm not a conservative. I've never been a conservative. I'm a Christian and I'm a nationalist, but I'm not a conservative. Let's see here. Chris Monalt says, oh, here's some free money from Alphabet. And he says, generally speaking, is there a simple way to tell the difference between a brainwashed, useful idiot and a malicious deceiver? Yes, all you need to do is figure out whether the deceiver actually knows what he's talking about. You know, then you can tell whether he's lying or not. You know, someone like Ben Shapiro, who is supposed to be, you know, presents himself as an intellectual, he knows what Judaism is. So he knows that there are no Judeo-Christian values. He knows what Western civilization is. The whole reason he's been attacking me is because I undermine the false foundation of his book. And he knows that. So that's why he actually went preemptively on the attack before my reviews start showing up, before people start calling him out on his historical deceptions. Merrick sent the link. Thank you. Daniel Pereira says, Jim Carrey just learned what he should have learned in Toronto. Italians don't care what manja cakes think of us, even Mussolini's. So, all right. Well, thanks very much. That will bring us to an end for tonight. So thanks for tuning in. You'll have to forgive me. My endurance for sitting here is not what it normally is because I can't move my leg. So I need to actually get up and move around before I completely lose all sensation in it. But have a good evening. Check out the whole, you can watch the whole episode of Barcelona Life, episode 2, whether you're subscribed or not. And if you enjoy what we've got up there, I hope you'll support it. So have a good evening. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.